Hello to Isaiah and Lila and Alex and potentially Natalie. Uh, I whoever else may watch this for any reason, any other Cradle readers in the future. I finished Black Flame last night. I was gonna type out my thoughts in the Discord like a normal person, but I wanted to talk about it because I have feelings and I just have feelings. And I wanted to talk about them, and I could have done that in voice chat, but Isaiah's sister is getting married, so that's her fault. I don't know why she's doing that. Anyway, my thoughts. I have notes on my phone. I wrote down a bunch of shit to talk about because I had thoughts and I wanted to speak about them. So anyway, this will just be my not scripted. This isn't scripted, but I wrote down notes to make sure I didn't get entirely off track. This is my wonderful, wonderful thoughts on Will Wight's books. Will Wight is a man who wrote a book. He wrote lots of them. He wrote 12, I think. Maybe more, but there's only 12 in the series that I know. The first book, Unsold. So everything... I'm going to explain each of the books very briefly with a synopsis, because I'll get to the thing I'm thinking of when I get to it, but I've learned recently that I sometimes misinterpret these books when I've read them, and am just entirely off from canon. So if I get anything in my major descriptions wrong, I think that'd be funny. So I'm going to describe a brief synopsis of each of them, and we'll see how that goes. So, in this world that the characters live in, every creature and everything has this energy to them, this that they absorb, collect, give off, what have you, called madra. And they can use it to do any variety of things. Generally, it can be used to do four main things: to enforce, to change something's physical properties; to strike, to create energy; to forge, to create objects; or to rule, which is random bullshit. As far as I can tell, it seems like the rulers just do whatever, and anything that's not the other three, it's a ruler technique. Which, because sometimes they make shit, but the other ones also, anyway. That's the things you can do. Depending on where you live and what you do, you use your mantra a different way, because you're on a different path. And that changes the type of mantra you absorb and what you can do with it. Lyndon, our main character, Lyndon B. Johnson, is unsold, which is a rare genetic condition where he cannot follow a path. He cannot follow any paths for mantra because he's got no mantra of his own, pretty much next to none, and he can't absorb more, was my understanding. Or at least he can, but he's very bad at it. He's just dog at absorbing any more, and he can't retain any. So because of that, his clan thinks he's useless, and he's just kind of a lowlife. His life generally really sucks until someone extremely powerful comes in and tries to do genocide. A goddess steps in to stop it, and she just takes pity on the little man, Lyndon, and changes the course of his life entirely. So, generally, I'm going to look at my notes. I had to look at my notes a lot for that. The rest of it, I'm just looking at yeah, so I think the plot overall of Unsold is pretty good, in that it's pretty good at... Okay, also, Unsold is my least favorite of the three by quite a large margin. I like it a lot, but it's definitely I finished Unsold and I was like, that was pretty good. It was alright. And then the other two are genuinely good. They make me want to speak about them. But what's good about Unsold, it's good at surprising you. Nothing in any of the Cradle books really happens predictably. Nothing you can't really predict it from the start. When you start this book, you can't really predict how it's going to end by traditional fantasy tropes. The story beats follow traditional fantasy tropes except the outcome, the lead up and then the scenario, all of it's fairly it's a situation you could see someone being in. There's a tournament thing, and then there's oh my god, he's going to this school for training, but none of it ends up at all how you think it would. There's this tournament that happens But instead of it being like difficult, Lyndon just beats the shit out of everyone around him because he learns how to cheat in multiple different ways. And so it's not, the tournament is very uninteresting, but it's a plot device, so it's fine. And then he like goes to the school for training and he just runs away. and like that's it. He just doesn't even go. It's like none of it happens how you think it would. I promise, both those things make it sound very uninteresting. If for some ungodly reason you're watching this and you haven't read the book, it's more interesting than that. I promise. But anyway, that yeah, maybe start in the book for her. Okay, yeah, my biggest problem with Unsold, and I didn't even realize, I didn't like think it was that big of a problem when I read it, but oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. I have Hades music on the background because I felt like it'd be really awkward if I was just talking here to myself with nothing in the background. So I have this music in my ears. Anyway, I didn't realize this was a problem I had with Unsold until I read the other two books, and Will Wight got a lot better at it. And I realized he kind of sucks at it in Unsold. I didn't even like. A lot of the characters in Unsold are really bad. Like they fall flat. I think other than Lyndon and Whitehall, who's like the main, I wouldn't say the main, there isn't really a huge central antagonist to all of Unsold, because Whitehall doesn't show up till the second 50% of the book, but I'd say Whitehall is probably the closest thing the book has to a central antagonist, and he's pretty interesting, and Lyndon is pretty interesting, but nobody else, Yaren gets better as we go forward, but, I mean, Lyndon's family is just kind of, they just kind of exist. The elders just kind of exist. Pretty much everybody in this book, I don't like Serial, and we'll get to that, but pretty much everyone in this book other than Lyndon is just kind of there, in my opinion. And I think that gets better going forward, but that's something that, like, looking back, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't the best. And, okay, Lyndon, if we're talking about characters, Lyndon, as a main character, isn't unique, really, in the way that he is. He's like but he happens to be, like, a nice cloth-wrapped bundle of tropes that I like. He is very weak. He starts off very weak, and he has to find unconventional solutions to problems because he's so weak. So he has to cheat, and he has to, like, find his way out of a situation, even though, like, he's an underdog, a constant underdog, and I love that shit. He's pure of heart. He just, like, in that and this is showcased better throughout the series, because in book one, when Lyndon is so weak, it doesn't really show that he's pure of heart, but as he gets stronger throughout the series, it becomes evident that he's, like, a very nice guy, and he's, like, genuinely tries to do the right thing at every turn. He's very intelligent, he's very crafty. These are, like, all things that other characters are. Lyndon is kind of Spider-Man. If you really think about it, he's intelligent, and he's pure of heart, and he's an underdog. He is kind of just Spider-Man. He's trying to just beat a Parker. And, like, I don't think that's an uncommon character type, but, so he's not exactly unique, but he's a lot of tropes that I really like. So I like Lyndon as a main character. I think he's great, and I will get more to Lyndon in the other books, obviously, because he's the main character. But just for Unsold, that's what I have to say about Lyndon. Another issue I have with Unsold, it's not really an issue, it's more of just a minor pet peeve. Generally, world building is fantastic. Generally speaking, world building in Unsold is fantastic. There's a very interesting world, like the magic system is very interesting, and it's a great foundation for a series because of how open it is and how many directions you can take the Madra system. Like, there are thousands, like, every ability a person has is determined by their path. And there's literally thousands of paths, just dependent on if you absorb Fire Madra, or Earth Madra, or Snake Madra, or Cloud Madra, or Chair Madra. It doesn't, like, depending on what you do, and, like, what you do with that Madra, there's a million different ways. So I think that's really cool. And I think learning about that's really interesting. Sometimes, because the world is as vast as it is, and there's a lot of things to explain, it can be a little bit overwhelming with how it describes things. I think, generally speaking, Will Wight puts a lot of effort into show not tell, and that he's going to show you what a thing does by it doing a thing, which is, I think, good practice. Sometimes though, especially in Unsold, he gets better about it in later ones, but it's especially a problem, in my opinion, in Unsold. He will be like, here's a list of things. Here is what they do. This is 12 pages. There's a point where Lyndon makes it to this magical school that I briefly mentioned earlier, before he dips. He's like, for making it into this school, you get to pick one magical item from a magical item hall. And they show him the magical item hall. And Lyndon is like, there are so many cool things in this magical item hall. There is, these knives made of half silver. Here's what half silver is. There is this little spirit. Here's what this little spirit is. There is a white lotus flower. Here's what a white lotus flower does. And it's like that for like 12 different things. It's like a million different Chekhov's guns. And the vast majority, I don't even know, I think it's all of them do come back. Like, all of them come back in a meaningful way. I don't think there's any of them that don't. So, like, it's not like it's pointless. It has a point. I just think it could have been done better. Because... And the other thing that irks me like this, and I have a lot of problems with Serial's whole deal in all the books, but especially in Unsold, but as it pertains to this, when Serial, there's a point, when Serial stops a genocidal maniac from killing everybody, because it would have diverted the time stream, she takes pity on Lyndon, and shows Lyndon the future and the world and everything. And she literally shows him basically everything there is to see on the world, because she's a god and she can do that. And boy, do they describe it. And boy, do they describe just about everything. And that, in my opinion, is that's my least favorite part. The whole Serial incident is by far my least favorite part of book one. I think definitely my least favorite part of all three books is the whole Serial incident in book one, which I will get to. But not the least of which is, like, I don't like her being like, this is this corner of the world. Look at these types of people. Lyndon sees a girl sleeping on the floor. Serial is like, that's Larian. She reached the rank of gold at age 8 because her father pushed her. And Lyndon's like, wow, that's crazy. Here's another thing. It took me a long time to get through that chapter. And so that's something that I think gets better by, like, that's, in my opinion, that's mainly a problem in book one. It's not really a problem in the other two books that I've read. But in book one, it really annoys me. So that's that. Back to good things, though. The pacing is fantastic. Other than the two scenes I just described, the pacing, because he's so good at showing, not telling, Will keeps the pacing going along at like a very rapid clip. Everything leads into each other in a way that makes sense. Like everything's causal outcome is the next thing. You never really expect it. It's not in a way that like you would predict what's happening. But as every scene moves on to the next one, you're like, it makes sense how this would happen, and we're just there now. It's just happening. There's downtime when there needs to be downtime, and like so Lyndon can like think about things and pause and reflect on what's happened. But it's like it's ideal pacing in my opinion, because it slows down just the rare times it needs to. And then otherwise, it's just like next thing. I would snap there. I can't snap. Don't try to teach me. I hate it when people try to teach me how to snap. I hate when people try to teach me how to snap because I can't do it. And I'll tell them I can't do it. And they're like, I'll be the one person out of the 68,000 people that have tried to teach you how to snap. I'm the one that can do it because I'm God's special boy. And I can teach you, Gabe, how to snap. You can't. Nobody can do it. Shut up. Anyway, I can't snap. So I'm just going to do this and pretend I'm snapping. But pacing, fantastic. It never like stops and like in its tracks. Really, it just keeps going, which is great. And I enjoy that a lot. I can't really read a book with bad pacing, so it works out. Okay. It's time for me to talk about the thing. This might get better in books going forward because there's something at the end of Black Flame that I will discuss that might make this get better going forward. But I don't like anything about the Serial plot in any of the books. And like I've tried, I just don't like it. And like it's getting better at the end of Black Flame for two major reasons I'll discuss when I talk about Black Flame. But it is just so, it's like the scale of it is so grand. Okay, so here's the deal. Serial is part of a set of people. Essentially, we learn that the world that Lyndon lives in, the entire world that he lives in, is one of many alternate worlds, which house people. And when people become strong enough, so strong in any of these worlds, which all seemingly, from my understanding, have the same magic system of Madra. When you get strong enough in any of these worlds, you can rise and become an Abadan, which is a god, essentially. And you're one of an order of gods that go around controlling these worlds, making sure things don't go too far out of line. Like, they don't stop atrocities or anything, but if something's going to happen that would divert existence in the world by such a vast degree that it could cause the appearance of what's known as a dread god, which is what happens when something is just like a world is so beyond fucked up that it's unredeemable, that can hurt other worlds as well, then they have to come in and stop it. That's their deal. Serial is one of those. And when somebody is essentially teleported from beyond the grave, and it's a whole sequence, into Linden's world of Cradle, that's what his world is called. That's why it's called that, series called that. Someone is teleported in his world. She steps in and stops that from happening, because that guy is so powerful, he would just kill everybody. And then that would fuck things up. So she stops it. Linden sees her stop it and is like, hey, can you help me out here? Because Linden is dying at this moment. And she helps him out. The thing about the Serial story, and it goes into like what Serial is dealing with, it is so incomprehensibly vast. Like, she is dealing with entire universes and worlds that have been destroyed. We are flashing between Linden's story, which is reasonably contained, is the adventures of this one boy to get stronger and solve whatever's going on with him at the moment, to Serial's story, which is I am deleting an entire planet with just a flick of my finger, and I feel a little bit bad about it. And that's like, I can't relate to that at all. I can't bring myself to care. I just can't. And again, it gets better. But it's like, in Unsold especially, it is just like so far beyond me giving a shit about any of it. So that's one part of it. And I also don't generally like... part of what I like about Linden is he's an underdog, okay? He is... he's a chill underdog, and all of his power comes from his training and from his trying to get better. He gets lucky, but like for the most part, his strength comes because he works for it. Except in the case of what Serial did. Because what Serial did is just like God deciding to be nice to him and save him from dying. And like, he just would be dead if she didn't like come in and save him. And if she essentially gave him his mission to like exit Sacred Valley, this safe place he's lived his whole life, and become stronger. Linden always wanted to be stronger, but he never had the motivation because it was so hard for him until Serial came along and was like, you have to do this. And that the fact that his motivation comes from something like that isn't within himself, and that is just this person deciding to intervene on him, I don't like that. I really don't. And that's my biggest problem with this series as a whole, is that whole involvement. And we'll talk about that. That's it for now. Okay, that's all I'm going to talk about it for the purpose of Unsold. But I want to keep... we're coming up the 20-minute mark, so I didn't plan to talk about this shit for this long. So we're going to move on a bit. But overall, I like Unsold a lot. I like his writing style a lot, but he just gets better at it as the series progresses. But he writes characters in a way in all three series. Again, more of them in later books, but in Unsold, a few of them, in a way that is very colorful. He does great with imagery and like making you feel like you're in a scene. Fight scenes are the most excellently probably some of the most excellently choreographed written choreography I've ever experienced, right? I think written choreography is a challenge in of itself, because you have to explain something in a way that is not too descriptive, because it's going to bog down the action, but it's descriptive enough to where you can imagine yourself being there. And that's tricky to do, and Will does it very well. Like, even in this book, he is just good at that. Just generally speaking, he is good at action scenes. And that is, like, I think a selling point of the series for a lot of people, and I see why. He's just good at it. And it's good in all three books. They're evocative, and they bring you into there, and they rush you along. They're cool, they're flashy. It's great. It's awesome. So, good stuff. And Will does this thing I've never seen in novels before, where he has bloopers. He has a blooper reel at the end of the book where he's like, wouldn't it be funny if this happened? Like, and I can't really explain them because that wouldn't be funny. But like, he he's like, what if Serial didn't save Lynn's life and she just killed him? That'd be funny. And it is. So it's like, it's kind of, I don't know, it's something amazing, but I've never considered that as a possibility before, to have bloopers in a book. But he does it, and it works. So, good stuff. So that's it about Unsouled, right at the 20-minute mark. Great. I thought I was going to talk like 5 minutes tops. So this is a video. Soulsmith. Book 2 is Soulsmith. In Soulsmith, Lyndon has joined his new ally, Yaren, who we'll talk about, and they fled Sacred Valley, the safety of Sacred Valley, to the more dangerous outside world to make a life for themselves. Where in the outside world, where everyone has to be strong to survive, to the point where almost everyone they encounter in these books going forward past book 1 is like hundreds of times stronger than anyone Lyndon encountered in the first book at all, other than Yaren. It is ridiculous. Truly, really and truly, the scale increases in this book. They are outside the Sacred Valley, outside these mountains. They stumble upon a village built upon a mysterious temple, rumored to house ancient artifacts, and they are eventually recruited by a mysterious benefactor for training. We'll talk about. That's my synopsis. So if anything's wrong, you can tell me. But that I didn't try very hard on that one, so I don't think I got anything wrong. From the get-go, my favorite thing that Soulsmith does, as compared to Unsouled, is it rounds out its character roster a lot better. Yaren, in the first book, Yaren is the Sword Sage's disciple. She was trained from a young age by the Path of the Endless Sword, which is a path. It's a path where you use your Madra to like you absorb Sword Madra, because like I said, anything can have Madra. Swords have Sword Madra. She absorbs Sword Madra, so when she sword fights, she's able to like make other swords like explode with Sword Madra and cut. Basically, like, anybody who's holding a sharp object gets cut by their own object as she like uses her ability. It's cool. It's written very coolly. And Yaren is in Unsouled. I think Yaren is she's flat as cardboard in my opinion, just like a lot of the other characters in Unsouled. But in book 2 onwards, she gets a lot more focus, and it makes her like a lot more human as a character, a lot more relatable. She gets backstory. She gets explained like where she came from. There's a scene in Soulsmith where Lyndon and Yaren, after traveling for like weeks and being like beaten bloody, they're bloody and they're caked in dirt and sweat. They pay for a bathhouse, and they each get their own little bathhouse room, and it's like this little moment of like relative luxury for them. And they just talk like through the bathhouse walls, and it's like Lyndon like tells Yaren, he's like, I'm so grateful, because Lyndon is still really weak at this point, and without Yaren he would have died several times until this point in the book. And Yaren is like, Lyndon's like, I'm just really grateful to you for like taking you with you. I'm so grateful that I'm with you. You make like I without you I would have died, and I'm grateful to you. Thank you so much. And Yaren like there's like a moment, like a pause where Yaren is like very. They don't like she's like from my interpretation very emotional about this, and then she's like, yeah, whatever, you know. They got a slow burn thing going on, and like I think it's good. I think it's pretty well written, but I think Yaren as a character gets a lot better in this book. Zhai Long is an anti-hero introduced in this book, where you almost want to root for him because of his backstory until you see the horrible shit he does, and then I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna redeem this guy at any point. But talk more about him in Black Flame. But Zhai Long is essentially he was banished from his clan because he had to adopt a remnant, which we'll talk about that. He had to adopt a remnant, which made him look really hideous. So he's now hideous, and so he was banished from his clan. Kind of like in a neat parallel to Lyndon, because Lyndon was also hated by his clan, and they were happy to see him go. Zhai Long was banished from his clan, and he wants to seek revenge on his clan by killing all of them. And he's an interesting anti-hero, in my opinion. Fisher Gesha, we'll talk about more in Black Flame, because I think in book Fisher Gesha in Soulsmith is just an asshole. She is a lady who Lyndon begs to be the student of, and she accepts. To essentially to use him because he's naive, which like most people in the outside world in this book are assholes because they kind of have to be. So it's like it's not anything new. She's not uniquely an asshole, but she's an asshole like everyone else. So I don't think she's very interesting in this book. Aethon, though. I think that's how you pronounce his name. It's spelled Eithan. Tell me how the fuck you pronounce that. No clue. Isaiah told me at one point. I don't remember. I don't remember. I wasn't listening. Uh, but I always wanted to say Ethan, and then it's just spelled weird. But I think it's Aethon. I think that's what it is. So that's what I'm gonna fucking say. Aethon is my favorite character, and he will always be my favorite character. I think he is enigmatic. His power is really sick of being able to, like, essentially being able to sense anything within a 120-foot radius. He just knows anything going on. He has insanely attuned senses because he has webs of Madra going around him. That's really sick. He, even when he's an asshole, like he takes in Lyndon and Yaren for tutelage. He sees potential in him, and he trains Lyndon by locking him in a dark hallway for 2 weeks filled with monsters, and he's just like, survive, do it, figure it out. And Lyndon does, and he's stronger at the end of it, and it's such a dick thing to do, but it's funny because Aethon's doing it, and he's awesome. He's got so much swagger, you know, so much charisma. It's awesome. It's great. Love it. Love him. Yeah, love Aethon. He's my favorite. The scope in Soulsmith is widened by such a large amount, like I mentioned earlier, to the point where I think it would be very easy for Will to drop the ball if he overwhelmed you with new concepts or made things too incomprehensible. But he introduces everything at a pace that's very nice. New concepts, people, it all feels natural where they're introduced. It's almost easy, like, for it to feel hopeless, the situation Lyndon's in, because he's so drastically weaker than everyone around him at this point. But Will writes things in a way where, like, Lyndon always finds an out, and, like, you know he will. Like, you kind of have, like, a rooting confidence in Lyndon, where he's, like, he always, like, finds a way out of a situation, and that's cool to me, because it doesn't feel like grimdark hopeless. Like, the world is big and scary, but Lyndon's pretty chill, so it, like, works out. His accomplishments feel very earned. You always have these situations where you're like, I don't know how he's gonna get out of this, but he could, and then he does, and it's great. And that, I think, that makes everything feel very earned, despite the fact he has to cheat. He has to cheat still in this book to win, and it's still good. Yeah. Oh yeah. This is in Black Flame too, but I have some issues with it in Black Flame. I think it's done better here. I think it's done really well here. Lyndon's growth, his, like, continuous growth from the levels of advancement. There's depending on how much Magia you've accumulated, there's several levels of advancement in the world of Cradle. There's Foundation, which is where Lyndon was when he started, which is, like, the level of a child. So that's why, like, Lyndon was at the level of a child despite being a teenager, because he just couldn't rise beyond that. And there's Copper, which is the level of a slightly older child, and some young adults. Then there's Iron, and then Gold. No, Iron and then Jade, and then Gold. And then there's levels 2 Gold, and then there's Underlord, and then I think there's Overlord. I don't. There's a lot of them. They keep adding more as the series goes on for obvious reasons, because they have to. But Lyndon progresses in this book from Foundation, which is where he was for the entirety of book 1, to Copper, and then to Iron. And the way that it's done is really satisfying, and it feels really sweet. You get to watch this boy who you've been with since he was so weak, and he saw, like, so little of himself, rise in the ranks so much, just because, like, people decided to give him a chance. And, like, it's really, really good. It's really enjoyable. The advancement scenes are treated with a lot of respect in this book, which I have issues with that when we get to Black Flame. But when Lyndon advances to a next rank, it's such a it changes his entire body for the transition to Iron. He gets a new body, because everyone does when they transition to Iron, and it's so fucking sick. It's so cool. It's given so much weight and gravity for, like, Lyndon to, like, weigh on the fact he's like, I'm stronger now, I'm better now, and, like, he gets to feel proud. It's so nice. It's a feel good moment. That's what I'm trying to say. It feels good, and Will does good at that, at, like, making you feel good about this character's growth and his movement forward in the world. Gold signs are cool as a concept. A gold sign is when you advance from Jade to low gold, the lowest rank of gold, you do so by absorbing a remnant, which is essentially a ghost. It's a ghost of a person or a creature or a thing from their Madra. And when you, depending on like the remnant you absorb and the path that you on, you get a gold sign. Which a gold sign, just as paths can be anything, a gold sign can be anything, but it is something that permanently physically changes about your body. Kind of. Like, this is the thing I mentioned earlier, where I'm like, I completely misunderstood canon. In canon, Yeren, the on the Path of the Sword, her gold sign is essentially a metallic blade arm, where it's like a metallic stick with a blade at the end of it that extends from her shoulder. And so she has two hands, and then she has an extra sword. So she can fight with like a sword, and because she has a two-handed sword, she can fight with one sword and then also a second sword to like parry. And like that's her gold sign. I thought her gold sign was like a big robo grabby hand, and I thought she just held her sword in it sometimes. And I thought she could grab anything with it. And there was like a situation where I don't remember what it was. I think her hands were tied or something. I was like, you can gather this with your gold sign. Why don't you just undo something with that? I misread canon. I didn't understand it. But gold signs are cool. They can be anything. There's like a clan of people in this book called Sand Vipers that get their like aura from like poison and like venom, and they take a lot of snake bites for their like for their powers, and so or like lizard bites. I forget which. And so their gold sign is like a spectral lizard that like runs around their body and can like warn them of like danger. And so it's usually like an addition to your body, but it can also be something like that, where it's like something like kind of magic-y that just like clings to you. I think they're really cool as a concept. I think they're part of this system being very varied and interesting. So I like that. And I really like the ending of Soulsmith. I like how it let Lyndon win in like a small way, while also putting like a very compelling threat ahead of him. I thought the ending of Unsouled was fine. It was very open-ended. It was very like, stuff will happen after this. Anything could be there in the outside world. Because in book one ended by them sailing into the sunset, out of Sacred Valley into this dangerous world. And they're like, what will we find out there? Who knows? And that was pretty much it. Like, they didn't really... I think in... book one's ending was fine for the time. But it took me like a month and a half, I think. Or 2 months or something like that. After I finished Unsouled, to purchase and start reading Soulsmith. After I finished Soulsmith, I immediately ordered Black Flame. like minutes afterwards, I just ordered it. Because like I was like, I gotta keep going. And yeah, I think it is like in comparison to the ending of book 2, the ending of book 1 is made worse by comparison, because the ending of book 1 is so good. I mean, the ending of book 2 is so good at being like, go read the next book. Speaking of the next book, that's all I had to say about Soulsmith. Good book. Black Flame. Overall, my favorite thus far is Black Flame. I think it's a little tough. It's really close between Black Flame and Soulsmith for me, because I have a lot more about Black Flame that I really like, but I have a few things about Black Flame that I really dislike. So we'll talk about those as well. So, premise of Black Flame is that at the end of Soulsmith, Lyndon killed the best friend of Jai Long, the guy from earlier who's got banished from his clan. Lyndon killed Jai Long's best friend in self-defense because they were fighting over a magical artifact. And Lyndon killed Jai Long's best friend. Jai Long was like, I'm gonna kill you! And Aethon was like, you know what? You can kill this guy in a year. And I'll like, because Aethon is super powerful and he can like tell people what to do. He's like, you can kill him, just in a year from now, you'll have a duel, and the winner will survive. Duel to the death in a year. Because, and this was kind of like Aethon delaying this for Lyndon, but also being like Lyndon, putting pressure on Lyndon and forcing him to improve in a year. Because Aethon is like kind of sadistic. That's just, he's an asshole. We love him. So Lyndon has 1 year to prepare to fight Jai Long. And in preparation, he travels with Aethon to this massive city built out of hollowed out dragon's bones, which in this world dragons are extinct. They've been extinct for many years, but they've left their mark on society with the Path of Black Flame, which is a path where you produce like dragon flame, and if you use it so much, it drives you crazy because it's so powerful. It's cool. Aethon, for various reasons, wants Lyndon to follow the path of Black Flame, and so that's why it's called Black Flame. And so he sends him for tutelage to a new mentor, who is a big dragon turtle, who's a distant relative of dragons. That's my synopsis. The first thing I want to note, I want to talk about the characters. My highlight for this book, not the best part for me, but like I think the biggest improvement is Fisher Gesha is way more of a character in this book. Because like I said earlier, Fisher Gesha in Soulsmith was just an asshole, like everybody else. And she's like, yeah, I'll teach this guy some things, but I'm going to use them for my own gain. Fisher Gesha in book 3 starts off by being forced by Aethon to teach Lyndon genuinely, and so she's clearly like putting more attention into it this time. But as like the book continues on, she like starts to admire how hard Lyndon will work and like how much effort he puts into getting better and like how genuinely smart he is. Despite being like weak, he's very smart and he's very hardworking, and she admires that. And she feels so much more human because like she decided in book 3 to actively chose to travel with Lyndon to keep teaching him, because she wanted him to get better. And for supposedly, from what I can tell, no other reason. She just grew a liking for the kid and wanted to help him out. I think there's a few moments in this book where Fisher Gesha just recognizes Lyndon as like her very valued as her student, and she like is just like so pleasantly surprised by how well he does. And those are just sweet moments. I just like him a lot. So Fisher Gesha gets award for most improved, in my opinion, between books. Orthos is a cranky little dragon turtle who is the guy who's mentoring Lyndon in the path of Black Flame. He's just a gel. He's a gel. He's a gem. He's a jewel in every scene that he's in. He's just a cranky turtle guy, you know? What's not to love? He is a prideful, angry turtle, and he's great. There really isn't much to say about Orthos. I'm curious what he was like. Because essentially, Black Flame, the Flame of Dragons, the more you use it, the crazier you get. Or most people, anyway. There's like some people, like Lyndon or God's Special Boy, and they can find a way to delay the craziness from Black Flame. There's a legitimate reason for it, but it's like it's like that. Anyway, I'll get some more thoughts on that. But I'm curious what Orthos was like before Black Flame drove him fucking insane. Yaren really keeps getting better throughout the book. We got to learn in this book more about this parasite he has attached to her. She calls it her unwelcome guest, which is this red rope she holds around her, which it's been teased a lot in book 2. We finally get to learn what it is in book 3, and it's really cool. And I like the backstory behind her beating her master a lot. She has an arc in this book where she absorbed, like I said, in order to become gold, you have to absorb a remnant, which is like a ghost. She absorbed her dead master's ghost, her dead master's remnant in book 1 to advance to gold. And in order to reach a higher level of gold, you have to break this remnant. Like, it is inside of you, and you have to digest it and use its power to get stronger, to grow stronger. And she refuses to do that for the vast majority of the book, because while her remnant is undigested, so to speak, it is like her master is still with her. Like it almost is like he's like speaking to her. He's not, but it's like almost like she has memories of him that are more vivid, and that's like very hard for her to like get rid of because she misses him. But it's like she eventually accepts it to grow stronger in like a pivotal moment. Like she digests the remnant because she's like, he's dead. I have to move on. And I think it's a great metaphor. I think it's a real good metaphor for moving on and getting stronger for it. And I like it. It's a very sweet scene, and I like it a lot. Other characters are generally as cool as previous, but I wouldn't say anyone stands out in the development department. Lyndon, I have a big problem with Lyndon in this book. Not with Lyndon, but like I mentioned I was going to talk about this in Soulsmith. I'm going to talk about it. Lyndon grows in strength in Black Flame a lot more than he does in Soulsmith. Like he still grows 2 levels. He grows in Soulsmith. He grows from Foundation to Copper to Iron, and in Black Flame he grows from Iron to Jade to Low Gold. Same amount of levels, but the difference in strength between iron and jade and low gold is described as far bigger than the difference between foundation and copper and iron, like infinitely bigger. So he gets a lot stronger than he does in previous books, but he like it doesn't feel like it. Like there isn't nearly as much narrative weight put on it, which is my problem with it. Like when he reaches gold, which is a low gold or gold, which is a level that just like a year ago when he was in Sacred Valley before he met Serial was something he didn't know. He didn't like really like see as possible. Like nobody he knew or ever knew had been that high. It was this incomprehensible thing. And when he reaches gold in Black Flame, it is like nothing happens. He is just like he's like, oh, I'm kind of stronger now, aren't I? And then Orthos is like, yep, you're gold. And Lyndon's like, huh, I thought more would happen. And I'm like, me too, man, me too. Nothing happens. It's like, there's a little more fanfare when he becomes Jade. It's like he like takes a bit of a moment to remark at how strong he is, but it's nothing compared to like the feel good of him reaching Iron in Book 2, and how great that felt and how much he like dwelled on like how much he progressed. Like that was like, and at the end of Book 2, there's a scene where he finds like a bunch, because everyone has like a medal depending on which path you're on, right? So if you're copper, you have a copper medal. If you're like gold, you have a gold medal, etc. And there's Lyndon always had a wood medal because he was unsold, which so doesn't mean, or because he was foundation, so he's weak. But when at the end of Soulsmith, after he's reached Iron, he finds like in some rubble an iron medal, and he puts it on and he keeps it because he's like, this is, and there's more of symbolism to that I won't go into based on some Soulsmith stuff, but like he cries and he's like, I'm finally something I never thought I could be. And there's just not nearly as much emphasis put on it in Black Flame, which is pretty disappointing to me. That was my least favorite part of the book by far. Again, love a lot of Black Flame. We're going to talk about it, but that disappointed me. Yeah, so, yeah, that's... I was going to talk about Jai Long. Yes, Jai Long. I had Jai Long notes. Jai Long in this book is... there's a lot more... He gets, I think, more screen time than the previous book. That might just be because Black Flame's longer, but to me, I thought it was more screen time. And Jai Long sections were overall like the parts where I was like least interested in, but they weren't bad. I thought they were good. Like they were still interesting. It's really nice seeing Jai Long be accepted by this like by this group of people other than his own clan, and he's like feels so grateful for like a group of people that care about him. And there's scenes with his sister where they're really nice because he and his sister got banished from the clan together, and so he feels like some guilt in like her getting banished with him. And so there's like, so really it humanizes him a lot for him to talk with her. The scenes where he like dotes on her and like tries to keep her safe and tries to like make it so she doesn't have to know bad stuff is going on. And I think that's great. My thing with Jai Long is they treat him like they're gonna, like they humanize Jai Long so much with his sister and with him finding friends in the Sand Vipers. But Jai Long has such a kill count. Jai Long, to exact revenge on his former clan for being banished, at the end of Book 2, he gets a spear that essentially makes him stronger when he kills those of a similar path. That would be his former clan. They're on the same path as him. So he just goes on a murder spree in Book 3 in Black Flame. And he kills, like, they never name an exact amount, but it was illustrated as if it was like, I mean, at least 100, right? People, like, he just kills them, like, to get stronger. A lot of murder going on for a guy that's seemingly going to have his Zuko moment and get redeemed. Especially with some stuff at the end of Black Flame, which is sweet, but like at the end of Black Flame, Lyndon is able to, with the power of Little Blue, a magical spirit, which I will not talk about. Love Little Blue, just really don't have anything to say about her. With the help of Little Blue, who is a magical spirit who can essentially purify Maja, he's able to heal an illness that Jailong's little sister has. And Lyndon is like, Lyndon was like, seemingly from my perspective, sent to kidnap this girl for bargaining chip, and he chooses not to. And he's like, I'm not going to kidnap you or hurt you. I don't want to. Just go tell your brother what I did for you. Just tell him that I don't want to fight him. And that's like, yes, that is Lyndon being like crafty and like having a way out of every situation. Being like, oh, if I appeal to Jailong, we don't have to fight. Jailong is stronger than me. He won't kill me. That'd be great. It's also like, it's also really sweet, and it's also like Lyndon being like, I just want to be nice to this person. And to me, that's indicating that they're trying to redeem Jailong, which is difficult to do. I'm not against it at all. I love a redemption arc. Love me some Zuko in my life, but they gotta earn that shit. I hope they do. I hope they have him do some real good to redeem himself, or maybe I'm misreading the situation and he fucks off and dies. Who knows? But that's my Jailong thought. I enjoyed Lyndon, Yer, and Slow Burn. It was progressed a little in this book, where they like, I think he leans on her shoulder at one point. that's the most contact they've gotten so far. But it's like, it's just sweet. It's cute. It's nothing like incredible or anything, but it's like they slowly get to know each other more and get closer and start to trust each other more. And it's nice. It's just nice. It's feel good. A lot of this series is very feel good, I'll say, which is wonderful. I like it a lot. My personal highlight of the book was at the end, at the climax, when a bunch of people from the Jai clan have Aethon cornered. And they are, they essentially have him cornered 12-1. Only one of them is his power equal, but like still 11 weaker people, and then one person who's your equal, you're getting kind of curb stomped. And then Aethon like reveals his trump card, like he reveals that he has pure Madra, which is like so weak, but he's so strong with it. Like he has somehow made a path of pure Madra work, which is what Lyndon thought he could never do. And Aethon has made a path of pure Madra work, and just he goes fucking crazy, and he beats the shit out of everybody with a broom, and it's awesome. It's awesome. He's like, gentlemen, you don't want to do this, and he beats the shit out of everyone with a broom. Good shit. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Something I did dislike, which I know I'm talking about a lot of stuff I dislike. It's just because it's easier for me to talk about that than stuff I like. Stuff I like, I'm just like, I like it. It's good. Stuff I dislike, here's every exact reason I dislike it. That's just how it is. But I didn't, essentially at the end, Aethon goes crazy on these 12 people that are trying to kill him, and he murks all of them. And he even murks Jai Daishao, who is the one who is Aethon's equal, and the one who was the mastermind behind this plan. And he murks Jai Daishao, and Jai Daishao lives because Jai Daishao collected a magical artifact many years ago, and it essentially allows him to come back to life once after dying. I hated this. And say what you want, I am an Aethon stan, so him not getting his kill and like essentially being made a fool, not a fan of it for that reason, I'll admit it. But more than that, I don't like, it just feels so unjustified for it to be like, it's like when you're a kid and you're playing like rock, paper, scissors, and you pull rock and they pull paper, and then you're like, just kidding, I have my anti-paper scissors trap card, so you lost from the beginning and you didn't have a chance. It's like that. And it's like, essentially, like, Jai Daishao, like, manages to convince Aethon he's dead by, like, releasing a fake remnant, and Aethon, like, then leaves and allows Jai Daishao to escape. And I think that's bullshit. I call fucking bullshit, because Jai Daishao, the moment his heart started beating again, Aethon should have known. Based on all that we've been introduced, Aethon's power set, part of, like, his strength, is he's able to sense everything. It's just de facto, he knows everything that goes on, except for the works of a god. Everything that goes on, in like a 64 radius, 100 or something like that. He knows everything. So as soon as this guy's heart started beating again, he should have known, and he shouldn't have fallen for the fake remnant. I don't know why that worked, and that pissed me off. But I'm not. It's not a world-ending thing. It's just something I'm like, that's stupid. But still, cool moment from Athon. Regardless, that only mildly takes away from it. I still think it's really good. Still the highlight of the book. And then my last thing I want to talk about, returning to the cereal business. Essentially, the cereal business gets a little bit better in this book because they start to talk about things that are more comprehensible. Because the entirety of Unsouled and a little bit in Soulsmith, they don't do too much of it in Soulsmith. They dip occasionally back to cereal, and they're like, cereal is exploding this world because it's like taken over by a dread god or whatever, and she's like exploding it, and then she's taking everyone who survived and taking them to this new world and putting them here. And she's making a world. She's doing incomprehensible shit. And book 3 gets a bit better at that because they had hinted at it previously, but not in any way that mattered. But in book 3, they start to like genuinely explain a problem that she has that's more comprehensible to us, where she's like, one of her other fellow Avedans is missing, and there's this whole thing where it's like she finds what seems to be his corpse, but it might not be, it might be faked, and that's like a whole deal. And it's like they start to introduce conflict that is more comprehensible. But and another thing they do with Serial in this book is they essentially, when Serial took favor on Lyndon and allowed him to live, she gave him a marble. And she's like, you will never lose this marble. Even if it falls out of your pocket, it'll end up back there later. It is a way of showing you that I'm always with you, even if I'm not physically here. That's all it is. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't like keep him like alive or anything. It doesn't heal anybody. It doesn't have any power in it. It's just a marble that's always with him. And at the end of Black Flame, Athon reveals he also has a marble. And it's a different color. And we don't know like where it's from or what that means. But the mere fact that another character has one of these makes it more interesting, because it implies that this thing that happened to Lyndon, he's not the only person to ever have been saved by a god. It's happened before, which makes it more interesting because it makes it more of like a force that's happening and less of magic bullshit. And so I like that. Less of a Deus Ex Machina, more of, oh, this could have intrigue that's happened before. So it is better in this book, in that sense. I still think they're my least favorite part of the book. I think I said earlier that the Jai Long stuff was my least favorite. Not second least favorite, although that stuff's still good. The Serial stuff is genuinely just a slog to me. It's still a struggle for me to get through. Even if they're making it more relatable, at the end of the day, these are still quarrels between gods, and I do not give a shit. I hope it gets more interesting in future books, and I believe it will. I trust in Will Wight, that like he managed to make this relatable to me. But at the moment, I don't give a shit. But otherwise, Black Flame, I don't think I need to talk too much about it, but still, just like the other two books, great pacing, great imagery, really good character work on the ones that it shines the spotlight on. Magic system is super sick. Fighting choreography is some of the best I've ever read, and he manages to do it really well, really consistently. It's good. It's really good. Overall, really good. A lot of stuff I'm not gonna repeat myself on because this video's a fucking hour long. Jesus Christ. It's really good. Last thing, I have a few things I want to talk about, which are just my questions. I'm curious about going forward. That these are not, I wouldn't say predictions, because none of them are solid, but things that I'm curious to learn about in the next 9 books I read, because I've already ordered Skysworn. It's in the mail. What does Orthos end up like if he's cleansed of all his Black Flame? Because right now Orthos is a funny asshole. Is he less of an asshole if he doesn't have Black Flame? How much of that is Orthos? How much of that is Black Flame? I'm curious about that. Will we see Lyndon ever suffer at all from the effects of Black Flame? I'm hoping that doesn't get shafted because of Little Blue, because I think it could be interesting to explore Lyndon as a person who, I didn't talk about this, but literally has 2 Madra cores because of an incident that happened in the first book. He has 1 core that's now Black Flame, 1 core that's pure. It'd be interesting to talk. It'd be interesting to talk about like him like having a dichotomy between Black Flame and pure Madra, between like a good and evil. I think that could be interesting to explore, and I hope they do at least a little bit. I'm not saying it has to be a set focus of a book or anything, but like talk about it. I think it'd be cool. If Little Blue is able to purify him from Black Flame evilness every time, I think that's a waste of an opportunity. But I'll say no more. Does Jylon get a redemption arc? If so, how? I already talked about that. I think Aethon having a god interaction makes it way more interesting. I'm curious, my prediction, I think he might have been given a goal by a god or goddess and failed. And that's why he has such an interest in training Lyndon, is he's like, Lyndon has a similar thing going on, I'll make him do better where I didn't. That's my prediction. No clue if that's true or not. But I think Aethon, who just showed up out of nowhere from some random place, I think he had a home and it was destroyed. And he's coming to like, yeah, he was forced to flee, and I was like, I'm going to teach this guy to do better. That's my prediction. If our heroes ever interact with Serial, and that whole thing in any way, and if things are all, because naturally you can progress to an Abaddon, so logically Lyndon could hypothetically become an Abaddon, or any other character could. So if they do, how is that going to stay interesting? Like, how are they going to keep that scope reined in enough to where it's still interesting even if your character is a god? I think that could be. I'm curious how he would do that. I'm a little nervous about it, but it could be cool if he does it right. And finally, God, my throat hurts. What would be all of our paths? That's something I'm curious about. You can put it in the comments. But I think, because I was thinking about this as I was reading the book, and I was thinking about this. I think Isaiah is like a weapon module type. I can see Isaiah having like a bunch of. I don't know why I thought of it. Legitimately, it doesn't like correlate to Isaiah in any way. But I kept thinking about him wielding like a spoon and a fork and a knife or something, and like all these different eating utensils. And he's like the path of like the spoon and fork. And like he has the ability to like, and it's like diverse, and he has like diverse weapons, and he can pull out like a broomstick. Like I was thinking of him using like things that aren't weapons as weapons, like a spoon and a fork and a broomstick. Like Aethon uses a broomstick, Aethon uses scissors. I was probably just thinking of it because I was thinking of Aethon, but like, or like I don't know, beads or like a water bottle. I'm just looking at things on my desk. Headphones, a laptop, a picture, stuffed duck. Using I don't know. I think Isaiah would have a path where he's like unconventional things as weapons. That's what I see. Natalie would be Fire Aura. I don't need to talk about that. I see Lila summoning a bunch of gremlin creatures. Like I don't know if there's a path in this series that's the equivalent of like Shikigami from Jujutsu Kaisen, but like that's what the type of shit I see Lila doing, is like summoning a bunch of like little geese and creatures to fight. And like I feel like I don't know why. This is also like the Isaiah one, where like there's no like actual connection to the reason I thought this, but I feel like I can see Alex's path being like path of big, where he absorbs Madra and he like gets like 200 feet tall, like 60 feet tall, and he's like becomes a giant. I don't know why I thought about that, but that's like what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh, what would all our things be? I don't really know what mine would be, because I don't really think about that in respect to me. I think about it in respect to other people. I can't really think about it in respect to... Put in the comments what my path would be in Cradle, my Cradle AU, where I'm in there. My self-insert. What would I be? Put it in the comments. Alright. I still haven't decided if I'm going to make this unlisted or not, because I made all my videos on YouTube unlisted recently, because I was like, I don't want like random people to see this shit. I've like had that realization lately. But this one, I think it'd be funny if this is the only thing on here. If it would just be talking about Cradle for an hour. I think that'd be funny. So I might just leave this unlisted. I'm gonna leave it public. In which case, if you're not one of the 4 people that I intended to watch this, congratulations for being here. This video is sponsored by HelloFresh.